Duke, tell me about your role as the director of player engagement for the Super Bowl champion now, Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, thanks, man. No, it was a fun year, and we're looking forward to seeing what we can do coming back with all the tools and toys that we got coming back. No, so my role with the Bucks, I mean, I feel like my position exists to help our guys, first and foremost, navigate life. I think the professional football realm and the challenges that brings are unique. It's a space where I have the privilege of serving these guys and serving them without really. I don't want anything in return, right? So they have very few, I think, relationships where people are there just for them without something coming back in exchange for that person's service. But myself and my coordinator, Justice Jones, we have the privilege of just kind of helping these guys stay on the rails and keep their heads about them and hopefully walk away from the game a whole man instead of a broken one. And then as it pertains to the football side of it, hopefully I think we have been pretty successful in helping our guys become true pros sooner than they would on their own, helping giving them some tools to implement into their games, helping to help decodify some of the mysteries of the NFL and maximize, who God made them. So
How did you see the culture change upon Tom Brady's arrival last year, long before you win the Super Bowl, just as he comes in? How did you see that changing the culture of the team?
yeah, I mean, Tom was a huge part in that side of it, right? I mean, I talk to our guys a lot about on a personal scale, them having a transcendent why, something that drives them and moves them regardless of their circumstances, and so that they know why they're there and why they show up every day. But then I think the second core principle of a team that is really capable of achieving a championship like we did is that they would have what I call expectant belief, right? It's not enough just to believe, but to have this anticipatory belief, knowing that something is going to happen. I think is a huge part of the success of business, the success of relationships, the success of a championship football team. And Tom brought that in spades. I think his ability to step on the field and coach, the way that he would demand excellence from the guys, especially when we were between the white lines, even stuff that I wasn't privy to, like he would send texts to guys the night before games or just randomly in the middle of the night saying, "Hey man, I can't wait to hit you on this route to score a touchdown on Sunday." And all that stuff does is just fuel belief that it can happen. I mean, why not us? But I think sometimes teams get stuck in a lack of evidence. And Tom having 6 Super Bowls before he got here, and then getting his 7th, he brought that in a huge way for us.
Your dad played 9 years with the Chargers. You played, and you were a starter for the Buffalo Bills. Duke, how much does that experience help you relate to the guys in your role now?
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, I was 3 years old when my dad retired, and I spent the majority of my childhood, obviously with a guy who was a retired player. So I thought the world of him. He was always my hero, and I would stand out on the corner and of my neighborhood, and I would pass out, his old football cards and autographs and stuff. And I would do that when I was 5 and 6 years old. But I also saw some of the struggles that we went through, financially and otherwise, with him trying to figure out what to do next. I think what happens for NFL ball players by no fault of their own is that whenever they exit the game, and my dad was 9 years, they're that far removed from their peer group in achieving a successful career in something else. So having to start over and be 31 years old, learning a new skill, learning a new trade is difficult. I think the other piece that I really learned from my dad is how much the athletic identity gets wrapped up into who you are, right? To where my dad, he would come visit me when I was in college and when I was in the pros, and he'd be 50 something years old and ask, "Man, I would love to go down and cover a kick." I'm like, "Dad, those days are done, man. Like, you can't do it anymore." But in his mind, he really could. And so I think understanding that it becomes part of us, but then for all the struggles that I saw my dad and my family go through as a kid, I watched my dad work his absolute tail off to keep us afloat. Like his resiliency and his work ethic that made him a great football player, made him a great dad, a great father, a great husband. And to watch him grind through some of the stuff that he did to provide for us, was humbling. But it's also some of the things that I take to my craft now with our guys and helping them understand the transferable skills that they have as ball players, and that being a true professional in this environment is no different than being a true professional in any other environment. In fact, I think it makes these guys even more capable and adept at rising above their peers when the day comes to exit the game, should they just be humble enough to kind of take the time to learn what they need to do and do it really well.
Well said. I had an opportunity to listen into the rookie webinar, and players coming into the league, they understandably have so many different questions. Duke, what do you consider the toughest challenges for these guys as they transition from maybe being the big man on campus in college to being one of the guys in the league?
Yeah. One of the things that I think I've seen with young guys in particular is a reluctance to be brutally honest with themselves, right? I mean, I think we live in a day where, in our personal lives and families, we take 15 pictures and then we pick out our favorite one and then we scrub it and we fix it and we get to kind of promote and put out for public consumption our ideal self. And so, when guys now have done that for their entire, young adult lives, they get here and then they have a coach that's telling them that, look, this is wrong. You're not doing it well. I mean, and you're definitely not doing as well as these guys who have been here for 5-6 years. I think for some young guys, it's hard for them to take that on the chin and not feel like it's a personal attack, when really it's just about the what's necessary to be successful in this game. So, the guys that have been the best at assimilating themselves into the NFL are guys that can be truly humble and take coaching without letting it affect their confidence or their person, right? So I think there's those challenges on the field, and then obviously there's money and finances and family and things that are coming at them from every angle. So sometimes it becomes a perfect storm. I think what I try to do is make sure that the player themselves doesn't become their own worst enemy. If there's going to be hard things that come at them, let it be how difficult the game is and things that are outside of their control. And if we can help them, be an advocate for themselves and their best self, then we've done a decent job in the player engagement world.
You mentioned family and money. I know one of the questions that several players were asking during the webinar is, how do you deal with family asking for money? What is the best approach that you recommend, Duke?
Yeah. Sometimes you got to just get good at saying no. I mean, we all have our stories. Shoot, I have my own. There's people that I just had to cut off. Some people that they start kind of a slow game and easing their way in, but they have an agenda on the back end. And once that becomes clear, I think it's okay to sever some ties. And it gets hard with family for sure. But I've always been one where I try to help our guys understand that, they didn't ask to be born to the parents that they were born to when they were born. They didn't ask to be 3 years old and needing clothes and those kind of things. And so the idea that, someone would need a $50,000 kickback for raising them is an unfounded one, in my opinion. So, I think a lot of guys end up having a no person early on, which I think is a helpful tool. But ultimately, they need to be able to speak for themselves and advocate for themselves to where they can, in some respects, explain to certain people that, hey, look, this money isn't going to last forever if I'm giving out pieces of it everywhere. And help that other person figure out the best way for them to get what they need. That's not over leveraging a player that really can't afford it. So,
at one point, you told the guys to background check anyone that works for them because it is a free resource through the NFL security. How important is it to emphasize that resource is one that they should definitely take advantage of?
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, not everything shows up in a background check, but to do your due diligence and realize that the people that you're hiring now are your employees. Look, it's a huge paradigm shift for college football players. When they go to college, they're told what to do in so many aspects of their lives. They have to check with their athletic departments if X, Y, and Z is okay, or if it breaks a compliance rule or things along those lines. And then they go right from there to having an agent. And then they look at their agent almost because the agent tells them, here, you're going to train here, you should do this, you should do that. And it's a hard shift for young players to come to grips with that. The agent, when they pay them 3%, that's their employee. Their financial advisor, when they pay them a 1% management fee or a per transaction fee, that's their employee. A manager, same thing, that's their employee. So they're used to being told what to do instead of laying out expectations for the team of people around them. And so I think one of the things that I try to help our guys understand is, that it is a different paradigm that they're stepping into, where they now are professionals that have a team around them, a team of employees that they need to help set expectations and cast a clear vision for, and that all that stuff kind of takes time. But you can't do it if there's no plan in sight to try to execute that.
Some of the rookies were asking about how to handle if a veteran player isn't forthcoming with information or isn't just being helpful. And I know there's plenty of older guys who pass along the wisdom that they've gained over the years, but I'm sure there's going to be instances where veterans feel threatened or resentful that a young player is going to take their job. How do you think is best to navigate that?
Yeah, I always tell our young guys, don't stand too far back. Breathe down the neck of these older guys. I mean, it's a competitive environment, and it's a competition-driven league where it ought to be truly merit-based. The best guy ought to be the guy who plays. And I think I'm fortunate to be on a team and in an environment where our head coach, even over rookie minicamp, said, look, I don't care where you came from. I don't care if you were the first round pick or the last undrafted free agent that we signed. If you can play, I want you. And if you can't, we're going to get you out of the building. And he's proven that. He's done that with the transactions that we've had. Even Jason Light, our GM, or maybe I should say especially Jason Light, our GM, he's not one where we will draft guys and keep them just because we drafted them. If they come out on the grass and they're not as good as the other guys, he's going to cut them. And he doesn't care if that, makes his process look, like it's not effective. I mean, I think the idea is to set up a championship caliber team, and that's what we have. So when it comes to young guys dealing with veterans, I always encourage our guys to not take a back seat, to keep fighting for it. And that if a guy isn't forthcoming, it probably says something about how they feel about, where they stand, and less about what it is. So it ought to embolden them. It ought to encourage them, knowing that, if they're not seen as a threat, shoot, why wouldn't I help you? But if you're a threat, I may not give the same kind of advice, and that's on them. So, for our young guys, realizing that it's not personal, they're there to earn a job and fulfill their dreams and help our team move itself forward. You handle it kind of as it comes.
Do you find that the advice, the challenges are different for a first round pick versus a late round pick versus an undrafted free agent, and you really have to cater what you're saying to each individual and their needs and what they're going through?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, our first round picks, there's a different level of stress and pressure that those guys are under, and then the undrafted guys, the 55th man on the roster, who's on the outside looking in, there's a different level of stress and strain on those guys. I think one of the things I've learned, even in my time, no longer being a player, is, when you're in college and you're the guy, you're really unchallenged. I mean, when I was at Illinois and when I was going into my fifth year and had started for 2 years in a row, I mean, the only thing that was going to knock me out was an injury. So I got to relax and kind of settle in and push myself and play the best football that I could play. But I was able to do it from a relaxed position of not being threatened or challenged. And so I think a lot of guys spend the early part of their NFL career trying to recapture that. And the problem is it doesn't exist in the NFL. If you're Vita Vea and you're a first round pick, and then all of a sudden you have an injury, or Devin White, who goes down his rookie year with a soft tissue injury and misses 3 weeks, you feel the pressure of not being out on the field. If you're Mike Evans and you have an $80 million deal and you only have 2 touchdown catches over the first 6 weeks of the season, you feel the pressure of not performing and not being the guy. And that's no different than the guy who gets activated from the practice squad only to get cut the next day. Everyone has that level of pressure and expectation on them. So the sooner that you get used to just owning that and realizing that it's not going anywhere, the faster you can figure out ways to deal with it.
Duke, how have you seen AB, Antonio, grow and mature? It seems from the outside looking in, just following him a little bit on social media and being around the team for the Super Bowl, that he's grown, he's developed a little bit. How have you seen it?
Yeah, me and AB have had a fun opportunity to get to know each other. So when he first got here, he wasn't allowed to work out with any of the coaches. I can't remember if it was the terms of his suspension or whatever it was, but he couldn't get on the field with the coaching staff and he couldn't get on the field with the players. But he was allowed to work out in the building, and so he needed someone to throw to him. And I was a catcher in high school and a pretty decent pitcher in little league and stuff, and so I can throw a football. And so he had me out there. I was throwing routes with him, and the first play drive, I think he ran 5 routes, and I was two out of 5 throwing good balls. So like bad ball, good ball, good ball, and then a terrible ball to end the play drive. And he was like, "Man, this quarterback, you're killing me." And I was like, "Man, shut up, get on the line." So
I mean, he knew you played offensive line, right?
yeah, but it doesn't matter in this environment, man. If you say you could do something, you better go do it. So no, but that was the beginning of my relationship with him, and I got to throw to him for the first 2 weeks. I think I still have a problem with my right elbow because of it. But I think having the opportunity to just get to know him and hear his story, right? I think that's been my approach with our guys is, when you serve their felt needs, and for him, it was needing someone to throw to him, and you can come through with some of the felt needs. Then over time, they'll come back and look for more help in those areas that they either maybe don't want to address or that have gone unaddressed for a while. So it was to see him be the kind of pro that he was here. I'm always one. I use this a lot with my kids, like. And I challenge parents with this all the time. Like, are you as direct with your praise as you are with your criticism? And so when I see guys that are doing things the right way, I make it a point to encourage them in doing what they're doing. And AB is a guy who, came in, was, shut his mouth, worked, did exactly what he was supposed to do. He's not going to stop wanting the ball. That's a great competitive trait that he has. But he does everything that he was asked to do, and what it ended up yielding him was another opportunity to come back and do what he does. So to see him take that and move past maybe some of the stuff that's taken place for him in the past was really encouraging.
After you retired from the NFL, you earned a master's degree in Christian education. I know you spent a few years working for FCA. I've done several different events with them. You're a man of strong faith, Duke. So how has that helped you throughout your journey and through to what you're doing now?
Yeah. So, I mean, I talked about like a transcendent why, and, it's personal for me in that I feel like God put me on this earth to be a conduit of truth and a servant of men. Right. And that's no matter what I'm doing, working here in the NFL, working at a high school, serving my kids, coming alongside my fiance to work through life. I mean, I exist to serve others. And I think I really enjoy that. My cup is filled up from doing that. And like I mentioned about serving the felt needs to look for opportunities to satisfy others. Our guys have a lot of felt needs coming into the NFL. But ultimately, I think they have a need in their heart for a savior and for life that's meant to be lived abundantly, like Christ has given us the instruction to do so in His Word. So, I feel like if I can help serve what they need, and then help us get to that pinnacle of success, like we have, it's funny that the world is set up, and even the pleasures of this world don't satisfy. So you get to a championship and it's awesome. And then the next day you're still making lunches, you're still yelling at your kids. You still have the same, problems. It doesn't solve anything ultimately. So for me to be able to facilitate both, where we get to win Super Bowls, and then hopefully we get to see the beauty that's there in and through the forgiveness of Christ. That's the plan.